at the top center of your page, you should see the warm-up question. So we are seeing if we remember how to solve this equation for x. So go ahead and get started on this. So as I walked around, most of us realized that we needed to do the distributive property first. So good job with that. So we're not going to touch the 10x. Guys, don't forget that it's a negative 9 that you're multiplying times 1x, which is negative 9x. And then negative 9 times 6 is negative 54. And then we have 31. Okay? Now, guys, there's not really any work that you should show next. I saw some people trying to add 9x. We would want to do opposites if we were trying to move it to the other side. We don't want to move anything to the other side yet because we have like terms on the same side. So we'll just read it from left to right. 10x minus 9x is 1x, right? Just combine them together when they're on the same side. And then we don't really have to put the 1 in there, right? So that means this is an easy problem because all we have to do to finish it is the opposite of subtraction. We would add 54 to both sides. And so we would end up having x equals 85. Again, very nice job with that, guys. I'm proud of how much you guys have remembered so far from this year. Great job. We are moving on to section 3.2 today. We did 3.1 the last couple of days. So we're going to learn a couple different concepts today, but it's going to have to do with graphing lines. So this first problem says, solution or not, decide which of the 2 points lies on the graph of this line. Now, we're not going to actually make a graph of the line, though. There's a different way we can figure this answer out without doing that, okay? So I want you guys on this is going to be like 2 questions in one because there's 2 different points that we have to look at. So let's just like draw a line down the middle of this part of our paper because we're going to have to do 2 different problems in one, okay? The line we just drew in on the left side, I want you to rewrite this equation. 5x plus y equals 18. So what we're going to do, remember in an ordered pair how x comes first and then y? So what we're going to do is in place of this x, we're going to substitute the number 3. So we're going to write it like that because remember whenever we substitute a number where a letter was, we got to put it in parentheses, right? Then we have our plus sign. Then instead of y, we're going to fill in 3 because our ordered pair says that y is 3. Okay, are you with me so far that all I did was fill in 3 where the x was and 3 where the y is? Questions so far? So now we're going to, on the left side of the equals, we have some math to do. Now, I would be okay with it if you just go ahead and plug that all in your calculator, but technically PEMDAS does say that we should do the multiplication first, right? 5 times 3 is 15. Is 15 plus 3 equal to 18? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Yeah, that comes out equal, right? 15 plus 3 does equal 18. So guys, that's good. When it comes out equal, when it checks out like that, that means that if we made a graph of this line, like if we typed it in y equals and looked at the picture on our calculator, then this point would be on the line, okay? Now, we're going to see what happens with the other point. So look at the other half of your notes here. We're going to rewrite this equation again. 5x plus y equals 18. Then I want you to do this real quick. This time, if we're looking at this point, what do you think I'm going to fill in where x was? Yes, good. Let's raise our hands. But yes, because x comes first in an ordered pair, so x is 5. And then where y was, we're going to be putting 7 in there, okay? So you're just changing the x and y to whatever the ordered pair says. So this time it's 5 and 7. You guys go ahead and do this math for me over here and see if it equals 18 or not. I'm going to have you vote for me in a second, okay? So check that math, see what you get. Give me a thumbs up if it equals 18 and a thumbs down if it doesn't. Let me see everybody vote for me. Yeah, we should be thumbs down because 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 plus 7 is not 18, it's 32. So we would want to say if it's not equal like that, guys, put your pencils down for a second, because again, I want you to really understand what that means. In a little bit, we're going to learn how to graph lines in the coordinate plane. If I were to graph this line, this point would be on the line and this point would not be on the line. Okay, does that kind of make sense so far? Questions yet? We're going to practice one more like that so you can get the hang of it. It's the same question. Decide which of these 2 points lies on the line. So again, guys, just to keep our work organized, because it really is 2 questions in one. Let's just draw a dividing line down the middle. Let's take our equation and rewrite it. We can really rewrite it on both sides. But let's go ahead and let's deal with this point first, okay? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write 7, and then I want you to put some empty parentheses, then a minus sign, and then some more empty parentheses. Be ready to answer. I'm going to call on a random person. My question is, if I'm working with this point, what am I going to be filling in where the X was? Gavin? Yes, because X comes first in an order pair, then Y, so we're going to be filling in 2 there. Now I want to know what I'm going to fill in where the Y was. Anna? Perfect. Y is -4 in this particular point, okay? I could give you any numbers in the whole world for X and Y, so you just have to take the first number and put it for X, the second one for Y. Once again, guys, I'm going to give you a moment to do this math for a minute and see whether it equals 10 or not is what we're trying to find out. I'm going to make you vote again in a second, so make sure you're doing the math. Don't just wait for a classmate. Give me a thumbs up if it comes out equal to 10 and a thumbs down if it does not come out equal to 10. Okay, we should be thumbs down because 7 times 2 is 14. Guys, be careful that it's 14 minus -4. That's really like 14 plus 4. That's 18, not 10. Okay, if it doesn't come out equal, this point is not on the line. Again, later on when we learn how to make a picture of this, you would see that this point is not on the line. Okay, let's go and do the next one. How about you do the whole thing yourself this time? You figure out what number are you going to put in place of X? What number are you going to put in place of Y? You go ahead and do that one yourself this time. So this time, X is 2, so we put 2 right here. Y is 4, so we put 4 right here. 7 times 2 is 14, and 14 minus 4 is 10. It checks out. So make sure we answer the question, guys, which of the 2 points is a solution or which of the 2 points is on the line? This one is. Okay, remember the other one was not because it doesn't come out equal. Questions on that so far at all? Okay, that's one of the 2 concepts that we're going to learn how to do today. So the next couple slides are technically review because it's something that we learned before Christmas break. However, it was a little bit harder of a concept, so you might have forgotten it. So the question says solve the equation for Y, get Y alone. I want us to circle the Y because the goal is to get that alone. And I'm going to give you a minute to see if you remember this all the way back from the beginning of December. Did we remember that we need to add 6x to both sides? Because carry down that equal sign, -6x plus 6x is 0. The x's would be gone and y would be alone. But guys, did we remember that on the right side, we have to just write 11 plus 6x. Those are not like terms. We can't combine them together. So that whole thing is our answer, okay? Questions on that so far at all? Guys, I want to tell you why it's so important to know how to get y by itself like that. So remember yesterday in the lesson when we had to graph equations? So we had, for example, like y equals negative 2x plus 5. And it gave us a domain of a couple numbers. I'll just say like 1 and 3, for example. Remember how we had to make an XY table and we had to put 1 and 3? And then remember how we put this in our calculator so we could go look at the table and copy what would go there? Do you guys remember that? We're not going to be able to do that kind of thing unless y is by itself, right? Because look at your calculator. You can't use the y equals button unless your equation just says y equals. The y has to be by itself. So this equation would have been no good. We have to get y alone first, okay? So we're going to practice that for a couple more slides because you have to know how to get y by itself in order to do the next thing that we're going to learn, okay? So take a look at this one right here. Again, the goal is always going to be to get y alone, okay? So I want you to circle the y. What do we think we want to do first this time, Kale? Yeah, let's remind ourselves even that this is a 1. So opposite of subtraction, we'd have to add 1x to both sides. I'm going to be calling on random people, so get ready. I want to know what I'm going to have on the left side of my equals now. Ryan W., what's going to be on the left side of my equals? So yeah, only the left side, but it's still going to be a 2y though, because negative 1 plus 1 is 0. The x, only step 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0, so we're still going to have the 2 y's there. The x's are gone, but we have 2 y's still. Emma, what am I going to write on the right side of my equals? Almost, if it was 9x plus 1x, we could combine them. Yeah, since they're not like terms, guys, remember, we have to just write 9 plus 1x. We can't actually combine them together. So I'm still trying to get y alone. How would I do that? Would be the next step, Elise. Yeah, guys, you got to stop the side chatter. This means multiplication, so I would divide by 2. Now, guys, this is where, I don't know if you remember this from before break, you have to be careful to divide this whole thing by 2. So some people like to write it like this to help them to remind themselves that they have to do the 9 divided by 2 and they have to do the 1 divided by 2 in that order. Okay, if you put 2, that's wrong. It doesn't say 2 divided by 1. It says 1 divided by 2, 0.5x. Now, when we have decimals, we might want to just leave them as fractions. So 4.5, if I math frac it, we could just leave it as 9 over 2. 0.5, if I math frac it, I could leave it as 1/2, okay? Either one of these answers would be okay when it's a nice decimal. Don't forget, sometimes we get decimals that go on forever, and then we have to leave them as a fraction. Question, Kill?
Can I do 4.5 plus 1 over 2x?
Yes, yeah, that would be fine. So Kale had a good question here. We could leave this part as a decimal if we want, and then put that part as a fraction. That's fine too. That actually is probably the best way to write your answer because I know what we're going to learn coming up later in chapter 4 when we get there. And it's going to be helpful to leave this part as a fraction. You'll see why later on, okay? But yes, either any of those 3 answers are correct. All right, let's look at this one. I'm going to have you guys do this one from start to finish on your own. It's the same goal, get y alone. So if you notice from every example we've done so far, we got to get the x's over to this side. So you got to get rid of them on the left side. We'd have to add 9x to do that because carry down your equal sign. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0. Thanks, Ryan. It's going to make the x's cancel. What did we write on the right side? Elise? Right, we can't put them together. We have to just write 15 plus 9x because they're not like terms. Opposite of multiplication, most of you did a good job knowing to divide by 3 when I walked around. So we have to do 15 divided by 3 to get 5, but we also have to do 9 divided by 3 to get positive 3x. Good job with that one. Questions so far at all? Okay, we're going to get started on this one together. Same goal to get y alone. Okay, again, we're doing so many of these because you cannot do what we're about to learn next unless you know how to get y alone. What's going on, guys? What am I going to do first here, do you think? Elise? Yeah, let's remind ourselves this means 1x, and I need to get rid of the x's on the left side of my equals. I need to take them away because I'm trying to get rid of them to get y alone. What am I going to have left on the left side of my equals now? Anna? Yes, 1 minus 1 is 0. Don't forget that it's a negative 6y that I have here. What am I going to write on the right side of my equals, do we think? Emma? Good. They're not like terms. I can't put them together. I have to just write 18 minus 1x. You finish it from there. This says negative 6 times y, so to get y alone, we have to do the opposite of multiplication. We have to divide by negative 6. Now, guys, you have to do 18 divided by negative 6, which is negative 3, but we have to also do negative 1 divided by negative 6. Guys, you got to be careful about your order of division. The negative 1 comes first, then the negative 6. We have to type it in that order in our calculator. Negative 1 divided by negative 6, gross decimal. You're going to have to math frac it when it goes on forever like that. We can't just make up our own rounding rules. But it's positive 1/6 now, so you don't want to write minus anymore. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. We write plus 1/6 x. Don't lose your x there. Okay, questions on that? Okay, again, now you're going to see why we had to practice that so much because of the next thing that we're going to start to learn here, how to graph an equation using a table of values. So it's going to be a 3-step process. Do you see how step 1 says isolate y? So let's do it again. So we're going to, hopefully you've seen from all the examples we did, guys, it's basically the same steps every time. We got to get rid of the x's, which means we want to take away 4x on both sides as our first step. Carry down that equals. Guys, 4 minus 4 is 0. So don't forget, though, that what's left here is a negative y. Okay? On the right side, remember, we just have to write 1 minus 4x. They're not like terms. We can't put them together. So this is not the end. We're not done because y is not alone. What does that mean when there's a negative sign in front of it, Elise? Yeah, it's like a negative 1 times y, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So we have to divide all of these things by negative 1. So that's going to make it 1 divided by negative 1, it's going to be negative 1. And then remember that it's negative 4 divided by negative 1, so that's going to make it plus 4x. Okay? So that's step 1, get y alone. If we're trying to make a picture, we're going to have to know what points to plot. And how we're going to do that is we're going to have to make a table of values. So let's set up an XY table. But guys, this is a little different than yesterday because yesterday I gave you a domain. I told you what X values to fill in the table, and then you just had to fill in the Y's then on your own, right? This time it doesn't give us a domain. So that means when we go to our calculator, let's go to y equals, do this with me. When we go to type in our function, negative 1 plus 4x, and we go to look at the table, this time, because it doesn't tell us which x values to use, there's no domain, we can use any point we want, okay? So look, though, I gave you a grid that only goes up to 8 in every direction. So probably we don't want to pick the point -6, -25, right? Because -25 is not even on our graph. It doesn't go that low. So I would pick maybe, let's do -1, -5. Let's put that in our table. So fill that out. -1, -5. And then really, guys, we just need at least one more point. You'll see why in a second. So let's go ahead and use 0, -1. But again, really, you could pick whatever 2 points you want. Let's go ahead and plot those 2 points that we have now. That's step 3. So we're going to have, remember, this is the x-axis and y, right? So remember, if we have -1, 5, we always go left or right first. So we go to the left 1 and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our first point is going to be right here. Our next point is 0, so we don't go right or left. If x is 0, we just go down 1. Now, we could have kept plotting more points in our table. Actually, we could sit here and plot points for the rest of our life, because if I scroll down, this is going to keep going forever and ever and ever and ever. I'm pretty sure you don't want to sit here and plot points for the rest of your life, right? So this is how we're going to show that we could sit here and plot points forever, though. We're going to actually connect these points, and we're going to draw arrows to show that if we sat here and plotted all the points in the whole world, it would end up making a line that goes on forever in both directions, okay? You can even look at it on your graphing calculator if you hit the graph button. So don't hit second first this time, just hit graph. And it should look just like the picture we drew on our paper, okay? So again, guys, I need you to understand the big difference here. Yesterday, when we had a domain of only 5 points, our graph only had 5 points on it. This time, since we don't have a domain given to us, it means we have to graph all the points in the whole world. And again, how we show that is by just graphing at least 2 and then just connecting them to show that there would be more besides just those 2, okay? Questions so far at all? Okay, we're going to do another one all the way through so that you get the hang of it. But look, it's going to be these same 3 steps every time. So we're going to keep looking back at that. If we have to graph an equation, step 1 is always going to be to get y alone, okay? So let's do it. How am I going to get y alone? What's the first thing I'm going to do here? Gavin? Yep, and how do I get rid of it? Yep, I'm going to have to add it, right? Because -2 plus 2 will give me 0. It will get rid of the x's. Once again, don't forget, I have to just write -8 plus 2x. I cannot combine them. They're not like terms. Okay, opposite of multiplication. I'm going to have to make sure I divide everything here by 4. So -8 divided by 4 is going to give me -2. And then what should I write after that? Right? Yes, 2 over 4 can simplify to what, though? Yeah, so I could either write 0.5 or 1/2, okay? So I like how Ryan knew that we were going to do 2 divided by 4. When we go actually do that in our calculator, 2 divided by 4, we need to either write 0.5 or math bracket and put 1/2, okay? Again, guys, it's probably good to practice leaving it as a fraction, just because remember that one we had where it was an ugly decimal and we had to leave it as 1/6, okay? So it would be okay to put 0.5, but probably better to put a fraction. So we're done with step 1. We got y alone. Let's look back and remind ourselves of the steps. Next step is to make a table of at least 2 points. How do we know what x is to put? It doesn't give us a domain. That means we can pick whatever we want. So the easiest thing to do it with me on your calculator so you get the hang of it. Y equals, clear it out. We're typing our equation, y equals -2 plus. Again, I like to just type my fractions sideways with the division key. You can do it vertically if you want. And then we have the x, or you can put 0.5 if you want. Since it doesn't go on forever, you can put a decimal. We're going to hit second graph. Well, let's actually hit graph first. Our picture should look like this when we're all done, but how are we going to know where to put the points? We have to look second graph. We have to look at the table. Now remember again, guys, since we can pick any 2 points we want, if I were you, I wouldn't want to pick the ones that have decimals in it. So let's do -2, -3. Again, you really could pick whichever ones you want. Okay, and then let's do 0, -2. If you want to graph decimals, fine, but I think it's probably easier to avoid them if you can. X-axis, Y, important to remember, right? Because X comes first, so we got to make sure we go left 2 and down 1, 2, 3. Our first point's going to be right here. Then 0, so we're not going right or left, just down 2, 0, -2. Again, guys, we could sit here all day and keep plotting points from the table. So the way that we show that there's way more than just 2 points is we connect these and we draw arrows to show that it's going to keep going. On your calculator, it won't show you the arrows, okay? You just have to understand it would keep going. But on paper, that's how we show that it's going to keep going on both ways forever and ever. Like, guys, listen, if you only plot 2 points and you don't connect them, that's actually wrong, okay? Because this is different than what we did yesterday. Yesterday, we didn't want to connect them, but that's because yesterday we had a domain of like only a couple points, right? That was why we only graphed those 2 points, for example, okay? Today, it doesn't give us, again, it doesn't give us certain points. We're supposed to be plotting all the points in the world, okay? Questions on that so far at all? Okay, listen how we're going to finish up today. Yesterday, there were a couple of spiral review problems that we didn't do. You can either take out your notes from yesterday or you can just use your space that you have left in the bottom here, okay? We're going to do one of the questions that we skipped from spiral review yesterday, okay? So the range of the function y equals -2x plus 7 is 15, 2, and -5. What is the domain? So guys, again, in order to answer a question like this, we have to know our vocabulary. We have to know what range and domain mean. So somebody tell me what range means. Elise? Yes, range is the y values, okay? So then we know the range. It says the range is these numbers. So what am I supposed to be doing in this question, Kale? Yeah, where do I plug it in? Right, guys, look at me. You have to be so careful because the past 2 classes, we've been putting things in place of x all the time because I gave you the domain. You have to understand this is a backwards problem because I gave you the range this time. So we have to take this first number and put it in place of y this time, okay? Because range means y. And then we have to solve it for x because it says what is the domain. I'm going to give you a minute to do that on your own. So hopefully you took away 7 from both sides. So 15 minus 7 is 8. And then hopefully you did the opposite of multiplication. You divide by -2. How many of you got -4 for x? Okay, now listen, guys. When we go to find the domain, it's going to be a list of numbers. This is only one number in the list. Now, because look, the range had 3 numbers, so our domain is also going to have 3 numbers. Now we're going to have to put 2 in place of y, okay? So you're going to write 2 equals -2x plus 7. Are you with me? Do you understand where I'm getting this from? So you go ahead and solve that one real quick now. So we should have, again, taken away 7 from both sides. You're going to solve it the same way. 2 minus 7 is -5. And then opposite of multiplication, we're going to divide by -2. And -5 divided by -2 is 2.5. So that's our next number in the domain. We got one more. We got to put -5 in place of y. Maybe. My computer looks like it's frozen. Okay, -5 in place of y. We'll do it real quick just to finish. You're going to solve it the same way. You're going to take away 7. It won't let me pick a different color, so it's going to be all purple. -5 minus 7 is -12. Opposite of multiplication, you're going to divide by -2. So what are we going to get? 6. Good. 6 is our last number in the domain.